Whatever is pure, lovely, true, think on these things. The Rock Radio Network.
And welcome back. Welcome back to Drive Time. This is a brand new show, Mark. You're my first interview. First,
I'm honored.
Mr. Jimerson, how are you?
I'm doing great.
So you were here on Share-a-thon, and somehow the Lord put you here because you've been trying to come to the station for a while now, haven't you?
Right.
Because as I understand, you're a counselor, right?
I'm a therapist.
You're a therapist, and during Share-a-thon, you came here to volunteer to be on the phones, right?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Which is amazing. And then when I came out, you have a good recommendation from Pastor Paul. You obviously you have a good resume in the U.S. We'll talk about that a little later. But I came outside. Someone said, "Hey, this is Mark. You said I spoke to you once." And I really, how did you speak to me? And then, so yeah, the Lord put you in our hands, and I just said, "Well, come on, join me on the table." And we went on the air and we talked a little bit about what you do and what the Lord sent you. You feel the Lord sent you to do here in Puerto Rico. So, but first, how are you doing, Mark?
I'm doing great. I'm blessed.
Amen. Now, so you're a therapist.
I am.
Right? How did that start out in Boston, I understand?
Well, in Western Massachusetts.
Okay.
It was a long and winding road to get there through many life experiences, but it ended up being something I was called to do. And one of the things that I did when I was in Massachusetts was to co-found an organization that brought Christianity into psychotherapy. So that was a real turning point for me, because up until that point, therapy is basically a secular thing.
Yes.
But when you can bring faith into the therapy, it adds something incredibly powerful. The combination is just amazing. So
right.
that was a real
game
changer.
You're working to the Spirit with the solution.
Absolutely. I mean, you put both together. I think there are a lot of things that can be learned from traditional psychotherapy, the kinds of things that people have been studying through research and through practice for 100 years and more, that are really important. And there's a lot that can be learned from that. But without God in the picture, the healing doesn't happen.
And how does it work? I mean, I don't want you to go into detail, but how did that start out? Why did you think that there was a need to bring in the Lord?
Well, I was actually at a point in my life where I was coming back into faith. I had wandered away a little bit, as some of us do at times, and I just started realizing that when you try to help people with things that are purely secular, it only can take you so far. So I ended up having a conversation with a Christian brother who had some similar ideas. We brought in a third person, a pastor. Spent about a year planning on how we would do this, brought in a business consultant, and decided that this was something that really God was putting us to do.
Amen.
In Western Massachusetts, and with an idea to expand beyond. And that was back in 2012. And we opened our doors in 2013, started hiring people, and it just started growing. People started coming through word of mouth. We did advertise on the radio through a Christian radio station, but I think what people experienced was something different.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they have been to therapy before, especially for a Christian, you can feel like your therapist just doesn't get it. If you start talking about God to a secular therapist, you're going to be probably tuned out. And so people got something that they really needed and started sharing the word with other people, sharing the word about what we do and sharing the word. And then we're able to go from there.
And, as Christians, we tend to think that we don't need counseling. We tend to believe, well, church will work it all, or I can work by myself.
And that's reinforced sometimes by pastors. I had people come to me and said, my pastor told me not to come and see you. And I think there's a misunderstanding that's out there sometimes among Christians that We don't need therapy. We just need Jesus. Well, of course we need Jesus, but we were given tools, through learning and research and through psychology that can really be helpful.
Yeah.
If someone had cancer, you wouldn't say, don't go to a doctor, just pray. Maybe some people would. Most people would say, go to a doctor.
Yeah.
So, but mental health has been a different matter. People, there's a kind of stigma sometimes that goes along with that, if you go to see a therapist, first of all, there's something really wrong with your head.
That's another thing. When if you go to see a therapist, it's because you're crazy,
right?
Because you have something, inherently, as you said, wrong with your head. And, you mentioned the doctor. I always think about the mechanic. Because when your radiator goes wrong in your car, right?
Right.
Some people can fix it and some people no. Absolutely. That's great. But most of us have to go to a mechanic because we're not mechanics.
Right.
And that happened, for example, in my marriage. I'm not a marriage counselor. So then I need to go get some counseling because my wife and I are very different people with our own baggage, and our own difficulties. And, we're going to, have some problems.
Yes.
And I think that's why marriages fail so much, because they just don't think. Then we have a problem, then let's break it off,
Right.
And I married my wife, and I made a commitment not only to her but to the Lord, and to our relationship and to our marriage. And I think that that's necessary. It's just necessary. And we are going to bump heads.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. We're not perfect people.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and going to a marriage counselor doesn't make me a bad husband, doesn't make her a bad wife, and doesn't make our marriage fail. That doesn't mean our marriage is failing. It's the check engine light is on.
Absolutely. There are things that can be learned. Therapists go to therapists. It's, I think it's important for all of us to have enough humility to be able to say, wait a minute, at this point, I need help from someone else.
And that's interesting because the Bible tells us to congregate and to, be in the company of others. And I think that's because, as humans, we need to communicate. We need to open up.
Yeah.
We need to talk. But then our own stigmas of who I'm supposed to be, our own images of what I'm supposed to be to you. And,
Well, that's one of the things that makes therapy different, and why it's different than just going to a friend, is because the rules are different. When you go to see a therapist, there's confidentiality. I am legally even not allowed to share any information. So when you go, all the normal social rules are out. You can say anything you want. So if you can trust that therapist to hold that information, which we do, then you can say anything and not have to worry about repercussions. And it's not a relationship like you would have with a friend. I don't share about my life with the person that comes to see me. I will listen. So the patient doesn't have to worry about what I think, how I feel. It can just all pour out. And that's something that doesn't just happen anywhere.
Yeah, and exactly. And how do you bring the Lord in?
That depends on the person, because everyone who comes is in a different place. There are some people who come to see me who have no faith at all, or perhaps they grew up in the church and they moved away and now they are completely agnostic.
Right.
So you have to get a sense of where they're coming from. I don't rush to bring it in. I look for the right moments.
Oh, that's great.
Look for when the person is ready to hear something. And often it's when we're at our lowest that we're ready to hear something different. And so I can just introduce the idea. I can start by saying who I am. I don't share a lot of detail about my life, but I'm very open about being Christian. In fact, it's part of how I tell people about my work. If you go to my website, it's going to be very clear. If someone's checking me out online, they can go to Psychology Today. They will see this is a Christian therapist. If they go to my website, this is a Christian therapist. So people kind of know coming in if they've done any research at all. And then I can just talk a little bit about it. Well, this is maybe how a Christian would look at it.
But it's not an intrusive thing.
No.
That's
and
great.
if they don't want to hear it, I've had people say, you know what, that doesn't interest me at all. But they know all the time. So I'll start talking about it in that way, but I can still use the same principle. The seed is there. They know where I'm coming from. So I don't have to push it. They know.
And it's a great, to me, that's effective because it's a great thing of going, well, this is what I believe in.
Right.
You know, and just putting it out there and it leaving it for the person to go, okay, great. I don't believe that, but okay. They already have that seed, and I've had good friends of mine in college that I've told, well, this is what I believe in, right? And they go, oh, Ray, whatever. You're just trying to preach. I'm like, no, I'm not trying. I'm just saying this is what I believe in. And then a few months later, they go, when are your services at church?
right.
And that's interesting because you don't know how the Lord will work in that life.
Right. And there are other people who come who are active in church. They're active Christians. And because of confidentiality, they can maybe say things they wouldn't say to a pastor.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to question my faith. That can be a hard thing to say to a pastor. But in a therapy session, we can talk about it. Well, what does that mean? There are people who come in and are very willing and ready to pray in session. And now there's something you're not going to typically do in a psychotherapy session.
Right.
It's pray. But I have people who will come and say, I want to. Let's start with prayer, or let's end with prayer, or let's just drop what we're talking about and pray right now.
Right. And that's a great forum.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to have that liberty of being able to talk and open up, right, without repercussions.
Right.
Because it's hard to say to the pastor, I've been questioning my faith, and you're a leader,
Right,
and then he goes, okay, great, that's okay, because the pastor may be a very wise pastor and goes, that's okay, we can talk about this, but I'm going to have to take you off of your leadership roles, and that's hard because it's,
Right, and take it to another level. Imagine you're the pastor and you're starting to have problems. You don't want your congregation to know about your personal problems.
Yeah.
So, you can go to therapy, and I've seen pastors, priests, chaplains,
Amen.
and where else are you going to go? Because it can appear to put a stain on you.
And that's something that we heard back in Sherathon. Actually, a call came in from a pastor that was going through divorce, going through a very difficult time in his life. And he spoke. He was an anonymous pastor. He did not want to mention his name, and I completely understand that because you're a pastor. You're not supposed to be going
Right.
You're not supposed to be going through these problems. But we forget that people in leadership, pastors, people in power, they're still human like you and me, and they still have problems and issues and difficulties and they also had their, they're carrying a lot of baggage with them, and sometimes we forget about that. And something that the pastor said is pastors need pastors.
Yeah, right.
And people in leadership need to open up also to someone else.
Yeah. Well, and the problems can be very different too from those of other people. I mean, you have all the normal life problems that anyone would have, but there are challenges that come with leadership in a church that are different. And who are you going to talk to about that?
Absolutely.
I grew up in a Christian home. My father was a pastor, so I have a little bit of an idea of kind of some of the behind the scenes things that happen in a pastor's life, and that helps when you're counseling to have had that experience.
To understand.
Sure.
To understand.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's a case by case thing, right?
Always.
Amen. That's great because that's how the Lord works.
Yeah. There's no formula for how you do therapy. One of the first things that's going to happen when someone comes in is I'm going to start asking questions and gathering information, doing an assessment. And some of that actually normally happens before the first session. I have a portal where people can go in and fill out some forms and give me some background information. But the first part is to assess needs. Right. Then you work with the person to identify, well, what is it you need? And then we set goals and we talk about, therapy is not forever. So, what are we looking at here? How long might it take? And how are we going to go about this?
Amen. And I imagine you do sessions every day, every week. How does it work?
Well, normally I start people out once a week.
Okay.
And then when they're ready to move to every other week or monthly, then we do that. And it's always different. Some people come in and they just have maybe 2 or 3 sessions and they get what they need and move on with their life. Other people might do weekly for a while and then bi-weekly and monthly, and it might take months. But it's totally dependent on the individual needs.
Last week we had here on the station an interview with some people from, I think they were from Colorado. And they came here because they have a ministry called Reaching the Heart Ministries. And they're trying to do counseling, and therapies from Christian standpoint, from a point of how the faith may work. And they're a lot more overt in how they work, absolutely. But what I feel is that the Lord has sent a need here to Puerto Rico. He has seen that here in Puerto Rico, we had, after Maria, we had, depression rates and suicide rates skyrocket.
Yeah.
And Pastor Joe Ramos brought something that I just want you to, what do you feel about it? He said that if people are dysfunctional, right, which we are, then that means society is dysfunctional.
Correct.
Right? But that also means that the church is dysfunctional.
It can be.
So then he's starting from the point of, if the church is dysfunctional, we can't fix society. We can't fix our community, right? So then let's fix ourselves. Let's do some counseling here. Let's transform the hearts of everyone in our church, because we all have issues, right? And he was talking about, he even said, we all have our problems, and we're not talking about them because we're Christian. Right?
Yep.
And that's something that shouldn't be happening. It should be the other way around.
Not at all.
And yeah, he said that he's trying to bring that to here to the island because there is a need.
Yeah.
And there is a depression rate, and he wants the church to be prepared in case of another emergency, to be able to go out and heal. Not only, bringing water and food, but also bringing healing to that depression that was rampant during that time.
Yeah. There's something called psychological first aid that there are some. I know on the island here, there's some people who've been trained in doing that, which is kind of a first responder approach to mental health. Go out and deal with it in the immediate situation, and then refer out to other resources.
Wow. I don't know. I think the Lord has brought you here somehow, and I absolutely believe it, because you're not the first person that I meet with this, type of ministry. And, again, in Maria, and the storms open up a lot of things, and it opened the church's eyes, in my opinion. It opens our eyes in how we are, we're not prepared in a lot of things, and how we should react.
Right. Yeah.
So why here, Puerto Rico? Why the island? How did you get here?
Well, it was God speaking to me. My wife is from Puerto Rico, but had lived in Massachusetts 24 years. She grew up here, but it was God speaking through me that brought us here. And she was a little hesitant at first, like,
as most Puerto Ricans are when we leave the island.
Yeah, you sure this is really it? And it was a process that we both did of months of prayer and trying to discern what God was saying to us. But
you just put in your heart to go to the island.
It just said go, and without knowing why. And I think part of it for me was a personal test of faith, because the first messages were simply to start to unburden myself of possessions, to start to give away things. When it came to God saying, okay, now sell your house, that brought a little more discussion in the marriage. Yeah. But my wife is a faithful woman. We did it on faith, not knowing what was next.
Wow.
And we took it step by step and just started going to another level of faith, of trusting that something was going to happen. And the message became clear: go to Puerto Rico.
Wow.
We were in Massachusetts when Maria hit. And so my wife asked at that point, okay, now are you sure? Right? Looks pretty bad there.
Yeah.
But the answer was yes. And so we came just a year ago. Actually, April 2nd is 1 year for us here on the
April 2nd. So you're just about to today. Today is April 2nd.
So
Today is
1 year.
Yeah, wow. Wow, so this is the anniversary. You know the Lord works out that way. This is the anniversary of you being here. Amen. Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing how the Lord works. Yeah. So, where is your office located?
Well, just down the road from the station, Avenida Ponce de Leon. I'm in the Miramar Plaza building, right directly across from the Conservatory of Music.
And directly across from it. Okay, great. Do you have a phone number we can share?
Yeah, if people want to call, they can reach me at 844-421-9710.
Again?
The number is 844-421-9710.
And I saw your website. Mm-hmm. So can you share it?
Yeah, it's jimersonarts.org. So my last name is Jimerson, Jimerson. Add arts to it and .org, and you can find me there. You can do a search, different searches will pop it up. You can also email me, jimersonarts@gmail.com.
That's jimersonarts@gmail.com.
Right.
Well, Mark, thank you for being here. I think it's great to have met you, and I'm sure we're going to see each other again.
Good.
Thank you for what you feel that the Lord has sent you to do, and everyone that is listening, if you feel that you could use some counseling, because we all can. If you can use some therapy, we all have our problems. We all have our issues. That's not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Open up and let the Lord work through you with the different tools that He gave us. All this knowledge that we have through medicine. I think that the Lord gave us this knowledge, and all of the knowledge that we have through psychotherapy. I think the Lord gave us all this knowledge.
Yes, and if people are hesitant, they can always give me a call and just talk about what it would be like first, and I can do a free phone consultation and go from there.
Okay, then. Great.
Okay.
Well, can you give me the phone number one more time?
Yep, it's 844-421-9710.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here. We'll be back with Dry Time.